read you a book today about going to the Outback. And this is a book about lots of things you'll find in Outback Australia. It's a non-fiction book. And I'll tell you that the pictures look very much like it looks in Outback Australia where I lived in Mount Isa. All right, let's find out about this. The Outback is a vast area of Central Australia. It's home to an amazing range of animals. About 1 in a million feral camels live in the Outback. Now remember, I told you that feral meant they were once domesticated. So they were once pets of people, and then they got loose and they live in the wild now, and they breed in the wild, and they're not pets of people anymore ever. Camels were imported by early settlers to provide transport across Central Australia. So this was before we had cars and trucks. Most kangaroos are nocturnal. What does nocturnal mean? It means they're active at nighttime. But they're also active in the late afternoon and early morning. Kangaroos need very little water to survive and can go for a long time without drinking. This makes them well suited to the dry outback environment. It's like a big old desert in the outback, except during the wet season when it's very, very wet. The colors of the thorny devil mean it's well camouflaged among the brown and red sands of the desert. This lizard's ridged back helps it capture the scarce desert rain. Well, that's interesting. Rain lands on the devil's back and runs down its body to its mouth. How fascinating. Runs down its body to its mouth. I did not even know that. Bearded dragons are another type of outback lizard. They can change color to camouflage themselves from predators. Some species of bearded dragons are quite friendly and can be kept as pets. Oh, how interesting. The frilled neck lizard can stay extremely still to blend in with the colors of its surroundings. It does this to avoid predators or to lie in wait for its prey. The frill around its neck flares out when it is threatened. We have a lizard with a flared neck. It's called an anole, a green and a brown anole. And it has what's called a dewlap on its neck, which is a red piece that puffs out. The inland taipan is native to Australia and is the most venomous snake on earth. The most venomous. That means it will kill you the fastest. Like all snakes, it's cold-blooded. These snakes can turn darker in winter so their skin can absorb more sunlight. So being cold-blooded means they can't move until they get warm. So they'll lay on a rock to absorb the sunlight, and that will warm them up enough for them to move. They can move pretty fast. Well, there's echidna. Remember I told you about Nana and what she does with echidnas. Yikes. Echidnas live in all sorts of environments, from the outback to the mountains. Echidnas eat ants and insects, and they can survive for weeks without food. Echidnas may look like hedgehogs and porcupines, but they are not related to them. Nope, they're a different kind of animal, but they do look a lot like them. Oh, here's our friend. What's that called? He's a dingo. The dingo is a wild dog and is the largest land predator in the outback. So he is the biggest predator. There's nothing bigger than him. There's no bears. There's no lions. In warmer regions, dingoes rest during the day and are more active at night. They will eat almost anything they can find, including reptiles, insects, and plants. Anything. They're like crocodiles. They don't care. They don't care if you're a person. If they can attack you, they will. The lace monitor spends much of its time in trees, coming down only to look for food. It's the second largest member of a group of lizards known as goannas. And the lace lizard is called that because its skin, look at that, looks like a dot painting, doesn't it? It looks like God dot painted that lizard. It's beautiful. I saw lots of lace monitors when I lived there. But you can't really see it in this picture, but most lace monitors are black and yellow, bright yellow. A wild budgerigar are almost always green. Any other colors would make individuals in the flock an easy target for predators, such as hawks. These birds have lived in the outbacks for millions of years. Millions! I can't even imagine how long that is. Little corellas fly in flocks of several thousand birds at once. These birds live in most types of open country and are often found around outback homesteads and cattle stations where water and vegetation is available. That's because outback cattle stations, that's what they call ranches there. They're really big though. Have their own water to feed all their cattle. Emus cannot fly but can run up to 50 kilometers an hour to escape from predators. Emu feathers help stop heat from reaching the bird's skin so they can stay active without getting too hot, even during the midday heat. And it gets hot in Outback Australia, like 120 degrees hot. Hot, hot. Australian wild feral horses are called brumbies. Most of them are found in the Northern Territory. They're descendants, that means they came from, escaped or lost horses that belonged to early European settlers, so hundreds and hundreds of years ago. See how skinny that horse is that lives out there? See him? He's healthy. He's just skinny because he runs a lot, and there's not a lot of food in the Outback. The Outback has a lot of this kind of dirt with some spinifex grass, but spinifex is very thorny. There are many cattle stations in the north and central regions of Australia. These stations are some of the largest in the world. Individual stations can be bigger than an entire country in Europe. That's true. They're huge. They have to be huge because there's not much food. The bilby lives in dry areas of central Australia. They have strong forelimbs that help them build complex tunnel systems. Bilbies make up to a dozen burrows that they can move between during the day, keeping them safe from heat and predators. All right. So your job with this book, I'm going to tell you right now, because it's a pretty easy job, is to think of one of the animals that you just learned about in this book about Outback Australia. I want you to draw a picture of it, and then you need to write 2 sentences of the things that you learned in the book. Now remember, you might need to reference back into the text for this, which means you might need to listen to Mrs. Wheeler read you that story again. Luckily, it's a really interesting story. All right, I love you. Do your best work, and be careful with your sentence structure. Can't wait to see your work.